In this video, we will take reactive 3D motion graphics to the next level. We will explore powerful techniques to make 3D layers dynamically look at a single point, create mesmerizing patterns, and build stunning animations, all without leaving After Effects. Finally, we will see how to create 3D shadows without an enormous rendering time. If we take a look at our project, we can see that we have this null layer, and once I move it around, all the other layers react to it. And they are not just reacting, but they are actually looking at it. And if I move it around in here, you can see this very clearly in here, that even if I go through these, everything looks at the null layer right over here. And they're also lighting up. If we look at this second example right over here, we can see a similar thing where we have this grid of shapes and they are all looking at it, and it creates this very nice motion graphic piece in here. And if we look at the third example in here, we can see that they are not actually looking at it, but they are actually performing this like nice rotation in here, and it creates this nice dynamic effect. These are all things that we will be doing in this tutorial, so let's get started. I'm going to start from the first example and then move on to the rest. So let us first create a shape layer, and I'm going to pick the rectangle tool and I'm going to draw a quick shape layer right over here. I'm going to enter inside of the rectangle, go to rectangle path, and I'm going to give it 100 width and a 10 height. This is perfect. I want it to look quite thin, and then I'm going to go to roundness and just give it a roundness of 5. Now I can rename this to 3D object 1. And once I have renamed this, what I will do is I will actually pick this up and duplicate this 8 times. So I will have 8 objects now, and I'm going to reposition these. So pick them all, reposition them somewhere around here. And then I'm going to pick the 8th object and position it at the edge right over here. Now I'm going to pick all of these, and I'm simply going to go to the Align tool. And if we scroll down here, we can find the distribute horizontally, and we can see now they are evenly spaced. And now I can simply duplicate them, Command D, and move them down to fill in this space. Let's do that once again. So now I'm going to pick all of these. Let's pick them, hold Shift and Command D on your keyboard to duplicate, and then we can move them downwards like that. And like that, very quickly, we have created this nice array of shapes. Now actually it's a good time to mention the Mobar Toolbar, which are actually sponsoring this video, and we will actually be using this toolbar at some instances in this tutorial. I will of course show you ways how to do the same things without the toolbar, but as you will see, in some instances this will really help us to make our process much faster, especially when working with multiple layers. And the good thing is that this is actually free up to a certain amount of uses, so you can just go ahead and download it and follow along. So now let's continue. I'm actually going to pick all of these layers and I'm going to change these to 3D. So let's toggle the switch right over here and let's press on that 3D button. Now we're going to make sure that we are on Advanced 3D right over here. And with that done, I'm going to open one of the layers and we're going to open the geometry options. Make sure that everything is still selected in here. And then we're going to change the bevel style to convex. Now for bevel depth, I'm going to give it a bevel depth of 3. And extrusion depth, we're going to give it an extrusion depth of 300 so that they are quite long. So before we click out of these, we're going to open the material options and we are going to tweak the material right over here. So let's first turn off the cast shadows and the XF shadows so that everything is a little bit faster. I will show you a different way how to create shadows later on, which is actually much faster to render. And now we are going to give it a diffuse of 100%, a specular of 30, and shininess 50%. Then metal, we're going to leave it at 0%. So great, these are the settings that I would like. Now I can click out and I'm going to hit U so that every layer is closed in here. And now we can start setting up our scene with different lights to make it look more interesting. Before we do that, I'm actually going to go ahead and go to Layer, New, and create a null object. And I'm going to rename this to Effector. Make sure that the name of this is 100% like this, since it is necessary for this effect to work. Let's turn that to 3D. And now I can start introducing my lights. So layer, new, and light. And I'm going to use a point light first and just hit OK. And now I'm going to align that point light right over this null layer. So somewhere around here. That's perfect. And what I would like to do with this point light is to actually push it into the z-axis so that it lights only the bottom part of these shapes. So let's do that. I'm going to position it here first. I'm going to hit P on my keyboard, and then we're going to play with this value in here until we see it lighting up the bottom part of these shapes. So somewhere around this is perfect. And now we can move to the next slide. I'm simply going to duplicate this. So duplicate that one more time, and let's hit P on my keyboard, and I'm going to now bring it back up like this. So I'm playing with the z-axis, as you can see, just grabbing on this value right over here. And what I can do is actually give it a more intense value. I can also give it a color. So I'm going to go to light options. I'm going to give it a nice blue color, somewhere like that. And let's see how that looks. And now I can increase the intensity to around 200%. I'm going to also increase the intensity of the other light. And now I'm going to push it a little bit further down, just like that. I like how this looks already. I'm just going to add a couple of more lights to make this look better. So I am going now to duplicate this layer, the point light 2, and I'm going to bring that all the way to the side right over here. Let's zoom a little bit so we can see it better. And now I'm going to duplicate that, so point light 4, and we can move that to the other side, and it will brighten up this part right over here. Perfect. So our lights are set up. Now I'm going to pick both of these lights, point light 1 and point light 2. I'm actually going to rename these to effector 1, and similarly the other one would be called effector light 2. And as you might have guessed, I'm going to pick both of these, and I'm going to parent them. So pick the pick whip and parent them to the effector layer right over here. So now if I move this effector, those lights would move with them, and this gives a very nice effect. Great, so we have the light set up, but we still don't have any animation on these layers. How can we do that? So first of all, I'm going to pick all of these layers, and I'm going to hit T on my keyboard, and that will open the opacity value, and I'm going to give them an opacity of 80%. And this will make them look a little bit more like glass. And now we can add one final light, so layer new and light. And this time it will be actually an environment light. So we're going to switch to environment light. Click OK, make sure cast shadows is off because this really slows down your process. So let's press OK. And this is actually a great time to actually press the Draft 3D button here so that it goes a little bit faster. And I'm actually going to go right over the intensity of this and just give it a value of 30% of environment light. And you can see what that does like that. So we are all set up with the look, and now let's move on to animation. To do the look at me animation, we are actually going to use an expression, but don't worry, it's going to be very simple. I'm going to give you the expression, so you can simply download the PDF. You have all the expressions right over there, and you can simply copy it and paste it. So it's a very short expression. It's this expression right over here. So I have copied it, hit R, go to Z rotation, hold Alt and click on the Z rotation, and then paste right over here. So Command V right over there. That is done. And you can immediately see that layer rotating right over there. And now what I want to do is I'm actually going to go over that Z rotation. I'm going to right click and copy expression only. Make sure to click copy expression only. And then we can go all over these layers, select them all, and then we can simply paste in here. So Command V. And now if I pick this null layer, the magic really happens since they are all looking at it right over here. Now, the final thing that is required for this animation to work is actually to change the color. I have actually gone over this process in another video, but I'm going to repeat it here very quickly so that you can follow along and see how this whole process works. So to add the color, we're going to go to the effector layer, and we're going to add some effects right over here. So go to Effects and Presets, type in Slider Control in here, and just drag and drop this slider control right over here. And we are going to rename this to Radius. And the next one I'm going to duplicate is going to be named Radius Strength. So make sure that the naming is 100% like this, since if it's not like this, this effect basically won't work. So make sure that even the caps in here are exactly like this. And then I'm going to give it some values in here. Let's give this a value of 500 and this a value of, let's say, 300. And then we're going to go over the effects and presets, type in color control, and bring in that effect right over here. And we're going to type in color from, and let's duplicate that and type in color 2. And now, once again, we are going to copy this expression right over here that I have included in the free PDF. So simply copy that. We can pick one of these 3D objects. We're going to find its fill color. So let's hit U and U to find that fill color right over here. And we are going to alt-click on this and paste this expression right over here. And as we paste that, you can immediately see that it took the color that is in the effector right over here. So now what we need to do is we need to do a similar thing where we need to copy this expression to all the other layers. And to do that, we can simply right-click and copy expression only. But now the problem is that we actually need to select each fill one color on every object. Now to make that process a little bit faster, what we can do is go to the search toolbar in here and type in color. And we can just hit enter and this will show us all the color properties right over here. And then we can go to fill one color and select these. Make sure to hold Ctrl or Command to select multiple options in here. But as you can see, this takes a little bit of time. So a simpler way to actually do this would actually be to use the Mobar Toolbar. They have these special selection properties in here where we can select the matching property. So click on that and we can select the all layers in this composition like this. And I actually really like this tool since if we select properties in here, it will automatically select all the matching properties. And as you can see, when we are working with multiple layers, this comes in super useful. So let's close this. And now we can simply paste right over here. And as you can see, now we have that same feature on all the layers. Now, of course, they are all red in here. This is not what we want. So let's hit U on our keyboard to close all the layers. And then let's go to the effector. And then we're going to change the color from somewhere like this light gray actually. And then let's go to color 2. And I'm going to give it this nice blue color. Press OK. And now if we move this effector around, we can see this nice effect happening in here where all the layers are reacting to this effector. Great, so this is already looking quite good, but now we still have to do the shadows and also the background for this. So let's see how we can do that. But before that, I would actually like to humbly ask you if you can just leave a comment below or even like and subscribe. This really helps me to reach more people and be able to create more content like this one. So let's get going. First, I am going to pick all of these layers. So scroll down, pick them all, go to layer and pre-compose from right over here. And we're going to rename this to example 1 and 3D layers, since this is where all the 3D layers will be placed. So now we have this composition called example 1 3D layers, exactly as before, just a different name, but it is of course pre-composed inside this composition called example 1. So let's start adding our background. So layer, new and solid, and we're going to name this to background. Perfect. Now let's place that right under the other layer. And we're going to go and bring in a ramp effect over this. So gradient ramp, drag and drop it right over there. And here we can give it our colors. So first, for this color right over here, I'm going to position it in the middle like that. And the other one, I'm going to place it outside like this. So I have that space. I'm going to change this to radial ramp. And I actually would like to swap the colors in here. So simply click on swap colors. And then I'm going to go to this and give it like this nice gray color. Perfect. So now wherever this center part goes, the light kind of follows. I'm simply going to go to the start color and maybe make it a little bit red. So perfect. This is what I want. Now I would actually like this end in here to actually follow my effector. So I wanted to do whatever the effector does. So to do that, I'm actually going to create a new effector layer. So I'm going to go to this example 1 here. I'm going to copy this. So Command C from here and go to the example 1 right over here and paste it right over here. So now I have the effector right over here and go over the background in here. And very, very simply, I can simply go to the start of ramp, hold Alt on my keyboard and click. And that opens the expression window in here. Don't be alarmed, just go to the effector in here, open the position, hit P on your keyboard, and we're going to go to the start of ramp in here and simply pick this pick whip in here, very simple, and tie it to this one. And just click outside. And that's basically it. Now if I pick the effector, as you can see, that light will follow the effector. But the problem is that actually these layers are not following, and that is because the other effector in example 1 3D layers is not connected to the example 1 effector right over here. So to connect that, it's rather simple as well. So what we can do is actually pick this composition here, so pick it up and move it to the side right over here. And now we have two compositions opened at the same time. So now I can simply open this effector right over here, go to its position, so hit P, and we're going to hold Alt and click in here to open the expressions of this, and we're going to do exactly the same thing as we have done before. Simply pick whip, and then pick whip on that position right over there. And now if we click outside right over here, we can now bring this back inside, so pick that composition and bring that back inside in here so that everything is organized. And now if we pick that effector from the example 1, so let's pick the effector, we can see that actually it is updating for us automatically. So that effector now is tied with this one, and we can do all our animation inside this composition, the example 1, without worrying about the other composition right over here. So that's great. Now let's create the shadows. So to create the shadows, first I'm actually going to add a grid. So to do a grid, we're going to go to Layer, New, and Solid from here. And let's rename this to Grid, press OK. And then from Effects and Presets, we can type in Grid right over here and simply bring in that effect right over there. So let's somewhere around that. And then we can simply give it a border of 1. And that's basically it. So if we position this right under the background in here, you can see our grid. Maybe a faster way to do this, if you're going to download the Mobar tool in here, is that you can go to Shapes, and very quickly you can go to Grid Overlay in here, and it will create a Shapes grid right over here. And then you can simply add the amount of rows and columns like this. Then we can go to Appearance and give it the color that you want, like that. And you can even give it a different stroke width and a different opacity. So let's make it 30. And then we can place that right over the background, right over there. And that's how you would create a grid using the Mobar tool. Now, if you are going with this option, simply right click on this and remove the guide layer in here, since by default this is a guide layer. So perfect, our background is fully done. Now for the shadows, let's duplicate this layer. So go to example 1 3D layers and duplicate that. And let's pick the bottom layer in here, and I'm going to rename this to Shadow. So Shadow 3D layers. Now I am going to go over the effects and presets, and I'm going to bring in a depth matte. So this is a great effect that is available in the newer software of After Effects in here, and we're going to drag that right over there. And with this, if we solo this very quickly in here, and we're going to scrub very high, we can select the actual depth of our 3D layers. So we're going to select just the bottom part of these, since we want the shadow to emerge from the bottom part of these layers. Now let's feather it just a little bit. And of course, if we remove this, that doesn't really change anything. Now we want to add an effect called CC, Radial Fast there. Just drag and drop that right over there. And we can increase that to around 79. And if we zoom up in here, we can see these nice shadows. They are not very visible in the light parts, but that's because we don't have the correct color. So to give it your own color, we can simply go in and find a fill effect from here and just drag and drop that right at the top in here. And now we can give it like this nice gray color in here. Now, once again, in here, this shadow, if we move the effector, it comes from the same space. So it's always coming from the same space, as you can see. To change this, we simply can go to the shadow in here layer, go to the CC Fast Blur, and we're going to hold Alt and click on that center. And we're going to do the same thing, pick the Quick Fit tool and drag it to the position right over here. And like that, if we move the effector, the shadow would always emerge from this space right over here. So this looks quite good. Of course, we still have to add that orb. So I'm going to go to the project window in here, and I have the orb ready for me in here, and I'm just going to drag it at the center right over there. Now, if you would like to know how we can create this orb animation, I actually made a whole tutorial on just orbs. So just go ahead and check it out, links in the description. And now I'm going to go to the solve, toggle this switch in here, and go to the transfer mode and change that to screen. Perfect, so our orb is ready. I'm simply going to parent that to the effector once again and bring the effector all the way up in here. So this is perfect, I like how it looks, but one thing that I don't really like is the thickness of these shapes. So I would prefer it if these are a little bit thinner so that they look more like glass. So let's go ahead and change that. So I'm going to go to the example 1 3D layers and I'm going to pick one of the layers in here. Let's find it right over here, open that up, and you can go to the contents from here, go to rectangle, rectangle path, and simply change that to 4. Now, the problem with this approach is that we need to go ahead and do the same thing for all the layers, so it's not very effective. But the great thing is that the Mobar Toolbar have actually that quick feature that we have used before. So we can click on the size in here, go to the selection tool in here, and select matching property. We can select the properties, and then with all of these selected, we can simply now type in 4 once again, and this will modify all the shapes automatically. And while we're at it, I'm actually going to also tweak the roundness in here to make them a little bit more like sharp. So select properties, and I'm just going to give it a roundness of 2. And one final thing is I want to go to the effector from here, go to the effect controls, and the start color, I'm going to make it a little bit brighter. So somewhere around here, press OK. And now if I go to the first scene in here, we can see all of this looking much better, basically like our examples. And we can go ahead and animate this the way we want it. Now hang in there, we still have to do the last 2 scenes. These are going to be extremely fast to do, so let's get on with that. I'm going to go inside this composition here. It's called example 2. It's a simple duplicate of example 1 here. And we want to create those circles to create that grid that we had before. So the first thing that I would like to do is I'm going to go to example 1 right over here, and I'm simply going to pick the background, perfect, copy, Command C, and I'm going to paste it right over here. Make sure it's at the bottom. And then I'm going to start tweaking these shapes. And of course, you can build this all up from the grounds like we have done originally with example 1 here. But in this case, I would like to make the process a little bit faster and use the layers that I already have right over here. In order to do that, I'm simply going to open these layers in here, go to the contents, go to rectangle 1 in here, open that up. And like we have done before, I'm going to use the toolbar to select the matching properties. So just select matching property from here, select properties, and then we can resize this to 100 and 100. Let's do the same for roundness in here, select properties, and let's give that a value of 100 once again. And now we have these cylinders. And now I would like to change the depth of these. So in this case, I don't need the toolbar, so I'm simply going to pick all of these layers and go to the geometry options from here and go to extrusion depth and just give that a value of 4. And like that, now we have these nice discs. Now I would like to rearrange these slightly so that they are in the correct position. So I'm simply going to pick the middle layers in here and pull them a little bit towards here. Pick these, pull them a little bit here, and do the same for these 2 layers in here so that they are aligned in a grid. Of course, once again, you can start from grounds up in here like we have done originally and create your grid like we have done at the original part. So perfect, our grid is done. And now if I pick this effector, I can see that still this effect still works in here. I'm going to pick one of the objects in here. I'm going to go and hit R on my keyboard, and we're going to add a simple expression to the orientation. And now this time you can copy this from my PDF, but I'm also going to write it directly in here since it is quite simple. So let's hold Alt and click on orientation. Now let's open the effector from here and hit P. And we're going to type in this simple expression inside the orientation of this object. So we're going to type in look at, it gives us the prompt immediately. And then we want it to look at the position of this 3D object. So I'm going to just close and open it very fast in here to show the position value right over there. And let's go inside of that and simply pick with the position. And then we're going to type in comma. So we want it to look at its own position. And then we want it to look at the position of the effector right over here. Simply type in a semicolon at the end, and this is the whole expression right over here, and simply click out. And immediately now you can see this layer looking at the center right over there. And we can simply click on this, right click and copy expression only. And then we can pick all of the layers and simply paste Command V. And there we have it. Our effect is basically done. And these are actually looking at the layer right over here. Now I would like these to look slightly upwards, so at us. So in that case, I'm simply going to pick the effector and move the Z-axis in here towards us. And that looks quite good. And now you can see this effect happening in here. And this is exactly the same thing that we have done to create this scene right over here. Great, now before we end this lesson, I would actually like to show you this quick preset that you can use to make your process a bit faster. So of course, feel free to use this tutorial, but if you would like to make it a little bit faster, you also have this expression right over here. To use this is very simple. I'm going to go to the effector, and this preset is actually the look at me preset, and we can apply the look at me effector to the effector. Just double click on that, and then we can select all the other layers, and then we can give them a look at me Z rotation if we would like, or a look at me orientation. Double click, and then I'm actually going to reselect all of these objects, and I'm also going to give them a new preset in here, which is look at me 3D position. Double click on that, and finally let's select those again, and let's give them a Z rotation here. So these will all give them different properties like we have done with the actual expressions, but this will happen all automatically. So now if I go very quickly to the effector right over here and move it around, we can see that the effect is already happening on its own for us. And that's perfect. They are all looking at this effect in here. Now, if I go to the actual preset in here, the look at me effector over the effector right over here, I can go to the affected layers, and I can see that in here, apart from rotation, as I have added the 3D position, I also have a feature for the position offset, so I can increase that or decrease that, and this kind of makes this like nice vortex in the middle where layers get repelled or attracted whenever the effector passes. So that's how that offset works. Then we have the actual rotation offset. So let's say you would like to offset the rotation of all of these layers, we can simply scrub through this and give that a rotation offset in here, so we can align them exactly how we want. And finally, we want to multiply in here the 3D orientation, for instance. So if we give it a value of 2, we can see now that these are like more random, and the rotation is happening at a more random way. And we can even use that in the Z rotation here. Let's give it a different value, and as you can see now, the Z rotation is also more random. So that's basically it. That is the preset. Of course, feel free to follow this tutorial to see how you can create all of this, but if you like a little bit more control, or even to do it a little bit more faster, you can get this preset, the Look At Me preset. Now, this will be available on Patreon, so you can get it from there, or else you can even get it from a link in the description. It will also be available for free for whoever bought the Pro version of the MoGraph preset. So if you have bought the MoGraph presets Pro version, you can simply re-download it to get this preset with those. Finally, let's jump to the last scene right over here. I'm not actually going to go over how we can design this in this tutorial, but I am actually thinking on creating a video specifically for my Patreon subscribers. But also I think that this actually deserves a whole video just on it. So please let me know if you'd like to see this even on the YouTube channel right over here, and we will cover basically how to create these kind of backgrounds with 3D spheres reacting to text and so on. So just let me know in the comment section below.